Crocktober again, and I am making a chili. Specifically, Male Chauvinist Chili. This is a real recipe in Rival's Crockpot Cooking. This book was published in 1975, which might explain the title of this recipe a little bit. If you'd like to go straight to the recipe, you can skip ahead to this timestamp. Now, the slow cooker was patented in the 1940s, but it wasn't popularized until the 70s, when Rival, this company, introduced the crock pot. So crock pot is actually like a specific name of the slow cooker. It's a brand, but you know, it was so popular that it kind of stuck. I think most of us, many of us, call our slow cookers our crock pot. So Rival introduced the crock pot in 1971. It continued to grow in popularity and blow up throughout the 70s. So this book was published about 4 years after they first introduced this miracle appliance. I was so excited when I picked up this book. I couldn't wait to unveil it for Crocktober. I think I ended up purchasing it in like November or December of last year, so it was a little bit too late, and I have been waiting all year. There's no photographs in this book other than the cover and on the back. It's drawings mostly, and they're very 70s. This is very appropriate. It's like a drawing for a squash casserole, so think fall harvest time. Same with this one. It looks like we have maybe a ham and a brisket here. Very orange and brown tone sketch. The beginning of this section on beef, pork, and lamb reads, "If nothing else, your crock pot more than earns its keep by keeping your meat budget from going completely berserk." Do we use the word berserk enough? I don't think so, not today. It's ideal for coddling those less expensive cuts of beef, pork, and lamb. It simply takes time while you take yours elsewhere. And I think that was really the attraction of the slow cooker. Especially, I think at this time, maybe there were more women entering the workforce. The idea of being able to put something together and then head to work for however many hours you're going to be working and not have to worry about it when you got home. Like, that was very attractive then. It's very attractive now to a lot of people. Now getting into some of the recipes in this book, there's a lot of soups, a lot of stews, roasts, things like that, but there are a few unusual ones that I wanted to highlight. Like this one for stairwell stew. I don't really know why it's called that. It's got stew beef, garlic, celery, olives. That is a surprise, green olives. I think maybe the acid in the olive rind maybe kind of helps break down some of the fibers in the meat. Mushrooms, tomatoes, flour, water, and mozzarella cheese. Still no explanation on why it's called stairwell stew, but it sounds really good to me. We also have this gem called bachelor's stew. This one seems a little bit more traditional. You've got chuck roast, your carrots, your celery, some mushrooms. This one has condensed tomato soup in it and quick cooking tapioca, probably to make the sauce a little bit thicker. I guess this one is so easy even a bachelor could do it. These are not really my opinions. I'm just trying to come up with why they would call it this. There were two on these pages that I was interested in maybe learning more about. The first one being Jenny Joe's. For some reason I was thinking like maybe sloppy joes, but with ground turkey instead of ground beef, and that's not what they are. This recipe consists of lean ground beef, onion, salt and pepper, and then condensed chicken gumbo soup, which I don't really even know if you can get that anymore, and then your ketchup, mustard, and hamburger rolls. The sauce is a little bit different. It has a little bit of a different base with that chicken soup. Very curious to know if any of you know this recipe, have tried this recipe. I'd love to hear more about that. And then the other one that had me curious is called Taverns. So this is, again, this is like a meat sandwich. So it's ground beef, ketchup, chili powder, dry mustard, and then some broth, some beef broth. So I think this is more like a loose meat sandwich. Sloppy Joes make me think of something a little bit more saucy than this. Again, I would love to hear if you know more about this particular recipe as well. The name of this one really had me giggling. It's The Babysitter's Favorite. I think the reason that this is the babysitter's favorite is that you can cook it anywhere from 2 to 9 hours. It can be a quick thing, relatively quick, 2 hours in a slow cooker, or a long-term thing where they just let it cook forever and ever. It sounds a little strange to me. It's apples, sweet potatoes, and hot dogs, and then brown sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and butter. Kind of like a candied apple sweet potato dish, but with hot dogs in it. I don't know if I would like this. I did find a few like spots on a page here, so that makes me think, oh, someone tried this, maybe it was good. This little section has, you know, some things on it. Old-fashioned baked beans, saucy baked beans, and our best baked beans. So many beans. I've often seen this referenced in some of my other books, especially Campbell's soup books, but there's something called an emergency shelf casserole in here. Baked beans, once again, baked beans. Vienna sausages, luncheon meat, so like Spam, dry salami, minced onion, garlic powder, and thyme. So you combine everything. What do? So you cube the luncheon meat. I don't know. I'm not sure about this one either. An edible dish. I don't know if it's a delicious dish. Here's one that I will definitely not be making. Braised celery. Nope. Not on this channel. It's 3 bunches of celery hearts, beef broth, onion, carrot, tomato paste, and bacon. It's probably fine. I honestly don't mind celery if it is like cooked in a vegetable soup. If it's like soft, as long as it's not crunchy. I'm skeptical. I don't think I'm gonna be trying this one. There was another little like tidbit of advice in here that I've never thought about or heard of. Crockpot crisping. Use your crock pot to revive stale potato chips and crackers. Place them in the pot, but do not cover. Heat on low setting for 2 to 4 hours. Voila, they're crisp, warm, and ready. Huh, I wonder if this works. Have any of you tried this little tip? I've never thought about doing it. Let's discuss the recipe I'm making today. Male Chauvinist Chili. I have been so curious about this ever since I purchased this book. It's like one of the first things I found when I opened it. It's a very meaty chili, so I don't know if that is why it's called Male Chauvinist Chili. They don't give any indication in the description or anything why this would be even called that. I'm not going to comment too much on this title. The interesting thing about this recipe is that it cooks for such a long time. You can cook this for 8 to 14 hours. It's different than what I would usually make as far as chili goes. There's sausage in it, which is very different for me, but I'm excited to give it a try. Let's kick off Crocktober. Before I get started, I just want to remind everyone that I am not the one who came up with the name of this recipe, so please don't come after me in the comments. You're going to want to hop in a time machine and go after the good folks at rival Crockpot Cooking. You may also notice that I'm using an Instant Pot today. The ceramic insert on my crock pot is currently cracked and it is on back order. I do think that this recipe lends itself well to an Instant Pot because you can slow cook in these, and it also has a saute function, and I have to cook all of the meat before we actually simmer the chili itself. So I'm gonna be using this today, but you can do this by browning the meat on the stove and then transferring everything to your standard slow cooker. Brown the bacon pieces until crisp. I have 3 pieces of diced bacon right here. We're ready to rumble. I wouldn't call this recipe quick and easy at all. I mean, it is a slow cooker recipe, but some slow cooker recipes, you can just dump things in a crock pot. This takes a little bit more time because you do have to brown all of the meats. This also has a pretty long cook time. All of the ingredients are gonna be kind of like pre-cooked or safe to eat, like, you know, vegetables and stuff. So I may try to speed that up toward the end because I am getting a little bit of a late start today on filming. Our bacon is cooked. It says to drain the bacon, so I'm gonna do that. Brown sausage and ground chuck with onions over medium heat. So I have 8 ounces of hot Italian sausage links that I've cut into 1-inch pieces. And then 8 ounces of ground beef. This is 85/15. I don't know if that constitutes like ground chuck or not. This is just what they had at Trader Joe's. It said 2 large diced onions. I did just 1. I did notice that this recipe is a little bit light on the spices. Like there's between 1 and 3 teaspoons of chili powder. Maybe the hot seasoning in the sausage makes up for it. So basically I was just looking to cook all of the meat in here through, and I think we're there. The meat is cooked through. The onions still have a ways to go, but do remember, this is gonna be simmering for quite some time. Add bacon and remaining ingredients and stir well. So got my little thing of bacon here. Go back in there. It kind of smells like those county fair food stands. I think it's a sausage. 1 small green pepper chopped. I couldn't find a small green pepper. I found a big green pepper, so I used half. So that goes in. 1 jalapeno seeded and chopped. 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. I said it, I did it. Ooh. 1, 2. 1 to 3 teaspoons of chili powder. I'm gonna go for all 3. This isn't like a very spicy chili powder. Usually it's got more like a couple tablespoons of chili powder when I make chili. Half a teaspoon of dry mustard. There's also a couple cloves of garlic in here. Got our garlic. A 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground pepper. I'm just gonna eyeball that. 2 cans of Italian style tomatoes. What I thought that meant was 2 cans of like diced tomatoes with basil, garlic, and oregano. I don't know if I'm right, but we're about to find out because they're going in. 1 can of pinto beans drained. And it said 1 can of garbanzos or kidney beans drained. I went with kidney beans. The other thing that this chili doesn't seem to have is a lot of liquid. This is very like chunky, very different from chili that I would usually make. I mean, I usually like to make a vegetarian chili, and this is the complete opposite. So as you can see, not a ton of liquid, lots of beans, lots of meat. I feel like this is not the chili for picky kids either. There's like a lot of things in here that I'm not sure kids would love. Slow cook, and we want the low setting. I'm gonna start with 8 hours. I might speed things up by setting the temperature to high for a couple of hours, but we'll see how it shakes out. On goes the lid, and I will see you this evening, basically. I let this go for the entire 8 hours. I did bump up the heat a little bit, but it is now dark outside. Probably a little too late for dinner, but you know, chili is almost always better left over anyway. So that's what we got going on in here. I'm gonna dish up just a little bit. It's definitely a little more brothy than I expected. There was some juice in the tomatoes, of course, but I think like the peppers let off a little bit of liquid, the onions, that kind of thing. So here we go. It's in like a glass dish. So I'm gonna taste it first. It does say taste for seasoning. So I'm gonna taste it and then kind of see if it needs a little bit of salt. The bacon had salt in it, of course, and the sausage probably did too, but I have a feeling that we're gonna need to add something to it. It's good, it's zesty. It definitely has a bit of a kick to it, but just a little. I'm gonna add just a touch of salt. Like not even a teaspoon, just a little bit. We're gonna try another bite and see how we did. The bacon in there is really nice. Not something I would typically add to chili. Definitely zesty. It's very meaty. It's pretty tasty, I have to say. If you easily get indigestion or heartburn, you might want to have some Tums at the ready just because of that hot Italian sausage. Overall, I would say give this one a try. If you happen to love recipes from the 1970s, I have an entire playlist and I will link it in the description down below. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel by clicking on the red button below. I post videos about food, vintage cookbooks, and retro recipes every week. Thanks again, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!